Every time I think that I've run out of story ideas on what to do with these characters, I suddenly come up with something really intriguing. When I last came up with a potential idea for a Fluttershy episode, I talked about how some aspects of her past could be presented to help explain the character she is now. Even back then, I wasn't sure what I could do for her character in a current setting. But after a couple months of trying to come up with stories that would often lead into dead ends, I had one evening of inspiration where several various elements could finally fit together. But would any of these ideas actually work for a future episode? Well, that'll be up to you to decide. Fluttershy has most always been a shining example of kindness throughout MLP. And I've even talked about how her character has a humble courage that is actually quite admirable. Fluttershy has also shown us her many fears, with some being very apparent, like her fear of dragons, and others being much more subtle, like her fear of being unloved. We've seen her kindness being tested, particularly when Fluttershy was reforming Discord. Even with her friends doubting in her abilities. Even with Discord laughing at her efforts. She managed to accomplish something truly inspiring. But one could make the argument that Fluttershy would not have been willing to even try reforming Discord if it weren't for the fact that Princess Celestia herself had placed so much of her faith in Fluttershy. And Fluttershy certainly would feel more confident about herself having heard such encouraging words from the nigh-immortal ruler of Equestria. But I began to wonder, just how far would Fluttershy be willing to push her kindness if she was all on her own? Without her friends, without the princess giving her blessing, what if Fluttershy had only herself to struggle with, being presented with a situation where there are no easy answers? I think we could create a story where Fluttershy's kindness is being truly tested, and that her example would prove to be an inspiration to all those who know her. I could imagine an episode that starts with Fluttershy caring for her animals, as per usual, and then even getting the animals to help her clean her home alongside her. Of course, we could get a few moments where Angel is being a bit stubborn, not really wanting to do his part for one reason or another. But Fluttershy would still be patient and gentle with him, as she often is. But as she is going about her day, there would suddenly be an unexpected visitor. Now, when I was first thinking about this episode idea, I thought that perhaps one of the Diamond Dogs could make an appearance, being all menacing and causing Fluttershy to cringe back in fear. But overall, I couldn't really see them as being overwhelmingly intimidating in Fluttershy's eyes. But then I thought, what if we were to tap into one of Fluttershy's deep-rooted fears by having a dragon show up? Of course, we couldn't have one of the full-grown dragons arrive in Ponyville, as that would most certainly draw too much attention. But we could have one of the teenager dragons arrive on Fluttershy's doorstep and still believe that he could slip in unnoticed. More specifically, I could imagine Garble filling in this role quite nicely. And as we would expect from him, he would immediately establish his dominance by trapping Fluttershy and many of her animals in her own home. This would of course terrify Fluttershy beyond most anything that she has had to face before. And Garble would pick up on this fear and relish the opportunity to use it to his full advantage. Using the threat of force on her animals, or even the threat of fire on her home made from a tree, it would be easy for Garble to make whatever demands he can think of. And I'm sure that even Fluttershy would have a stash of gems hidden away somewhere in her home to satisfy Garble's hunger. And this sort of situation would go on for a while, Garble making himself all the more comfortable. And of course, he wouldn't be all that friendly to the animals either, which would lead to a situation where Fluttershy is putting aside her deep-rooted fear. We've all seen just what can happen when Fluttershy sees the danger befalling those that she cares about most. And this situation would be no different. Fluttershy would be steeling herself, ready to use the stare to its full effect. But then she would see something that puts her completely off guard. She would notice that Garble's back is covered in scars, many of them still fresh. And this would cause Fluttershy to realize that all this time Garble had been moving around with a limp and even having trouble standing on his own. We know that Dragon Society uses a survival of the fittest mentality, at least when it comes to interacting with each other. So it would make sense that Garble had gotten into a fight with another dragon, and lost. While before, Fluttershy's deep-rooted fears had kept her from noticing these injuries. And now her need to nurture others would start overcoming her anger at this intruder. Of course, Garble wouldn't pick up on this change in Fluttershy. He would still think that she is doing what he wants because of his threats against the animals and her home. And while Fluttershy would still have moments of being afraid, she would be making a genuine effort to ease Garble's injuries and nurse him back to health. While this is going on, I could imagine a subplot where Angel keeps trying to come up with innovative ways of getting Garble out of the house. Setting up elaborate traps that fail at the last minute. Finding a way to escape the house to find help while running into ponies that just don't understand his way of communicating. But eventually, Angel would find help and bring the rest of the main 6 back to Fluttershy's house. And seeing that a dragon is involved, I could also imagine Twilight summoning a few of the Royal Guard to Ponyville to help with driving it out. And this would inevitably lead to conflict, as Garble would still be threatening Fluttershy, her animals, and her home. While at the same time, the rest of the main 6 along with the Royal Guard would be showing that there is no way out. Garble would stand defiant, even boasting that there is nothing that the ponies have that could possibly hurt him. Fluttershy would be trying to get both sides to stop, starting with her usual calm and gentle voice. One of the Royal Guards would be looking for a chance to end the conflict quickly and manage to catch Garble off guard. And even with his injuries, Garble would still be fighting back. But at the moment when the Royal Guard have gained the upper hand, Fluttershy would come between them. Though puzzled by her actions at first, the guardsmen would be insisting that this dangerous dragon needs to be subdued. Perhaps even one of the guards might try to rush in for another blow, only to be stopped by Fluttershy using the stare. Everyone around her would be overwhelmed by its use, including Garble. And for the first time, Garble would begin to realize that Fluttershy had always had the power to chase him off all by herself. Fluttershy would inform everyone that she intends to nurse this dragon back to health, and only then will she allow him to leave. Though feeling a bit unsure of himself, Garble would still be acting tough, as that is all he knows how to do. Even saying to Fluttershy, "I don't need your pity." And Fluttershy, being the kind and nurturing soul that she is, would answer, "I know, but I will still treat all of my guests with all the same amount of kindness, whether or not they feel that they deserve it." The episode would come to a close with the dragon flying off into the distance. While not going so far as to say thank you, I could believe that he would turn back towards Fluttershy with a look of confusion, as this would likely be the first time in his life that anyone had shown him any amount of kindness. I believe this kind of episode would show a greater amount of depth to Fluttershy's character. She would be dealing with her fear of dragons, but managed to overcome that fear with her desire to nurture and protect those in need, whether or not they may deserve that kindness. And at the same time, we would see Fluttershy acting with wisdom despite her fear. After all, courage doesn't mean that you are not afraid. Courage means that you are willing to act despite being afraid. While there may be some others out there who don't think too highly of Fluttershy's mannerisms, I for one believe that there is a great strength in her character. A humble courage that can inspire and uplift those who come to know her. But what do you think? Would this kind of episode work for Fluttershy? Would she be able to handle herself in this sort of situation? Would you have any more respect for Fluttershy if she had an episode like this? Would this kind of story work within the structure of MLP? I would like to hear your thoughts about these ideas, and here's to looking forward to the next episode where Fluttershy shows us how powerful her kindness can be. I am DRWolf, and I look forward to hearing from you.